Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another edition of the Underhive Wars. This is our series of Necromunda Dominion campaign battle reports, and this is battle report number 18 of our Dominion campaign for the Turf War to control Sector 7. This one is fought between my two friends Sister Serial and Lady Domina. My friend Sister Serial is bringing Precinct 13 with her Adeptus Arbites Enforcers, and Lady Domina is bringing the Killjoys of House Escher. So these two gangs will be throwing it down in a Marauder scenario. My friend Sister Sarah will be the attacker, while my other friend Lady Domina will be the defender. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's put some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what each of the gangs are taking, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll. Alright, so the scenario for this one is the Marauders. The objective is to take out as many of the enemy fighters as possible, and each fighter is worth 1 point. Whoever has the most points by the end of the scenario is the winner. For the deployment rules, the attacker actually only gets 6 fighters in this one, while the defender starts off at D3 plus 2 fighters. And at the end of beginning of every end phase, they receive D3 reinforcements chosen from the rosters at the beginning of each end phase. And of course, the defender also automatically passes all bottle tests, as supposed to represent the fact that the attacker is sending a small Kraken team in order to take out the defenders and hopefully destroy them that way. The rewards for this one is whoever wins earns D6 times 10 credits, while the loser earns D3 times 5 credits. For experience, each fighter who participates in the scenario earns 1 point of experience point, while the winning gang leader, regardless of which side it is, earns 1 point of experience. For reputation, the winner earns 2 points of reputation. Both gangs also earn 1 point of reputation for fighting against each other for the very first time, and if either gang bottles out, they lose 1 point of reputation as well. So that being said, let's go and talk about the deployment for this one. Alright, so starting with the deployment for Precinct 13. Like I said before, my friend Sister Sarah only gets 6 attackers on this one, so most of her forces are located on the left-hand side of the table where the walkway is located at. Up on the top, you have the Interceptor, which is the Cyber Mastiff. Right behind them is Judge Gosling. Judge Gosling is the enforcer who has the Orlok House legacy, so that way he can bring that Cyber Mastiff as well. He's also got mesh armor, he's got a shotgun with solid scatter shot, as well as a maul as well. And then right beneath him, of course, is another 3-man fire team. Up in the front is Judge Anderson, which is the newest enforcer for this gang. She's armed with mesh armor, a combat shotgun with salvo and shredder ammo, as well as a power maul. And then right behind them is Judge Fear. That is the gang. Judge Fear. That's the gang leader. He's a sergeant who's equipped with carapace armor, maul, as well as a bolt gun. He's also got the commanding presence as well as the trick shot skills. And then right behind them, that's Judge Vasquez. That is an enforcer champion who's armed with a mesh armor. He's also got a flamer as well as a last pistol. And that makes up Sister Serial's left-hand flank. Meanwhile, all the way across the battlefield on the right-hand side of our deployment is the lone Judge Drake. That is another champion who's armed with mesh armor. He's got a maul as well as a heavy stubber as well. And he's got the bulging biceps ability. And he's located on the very top floor of the MCI office building on the right-hand side, overlooking the entirety of the battlefield. And that pretty much makes up my friend Sister Serial's deployment. Meanwhile, across the table, at the upper left-hand corner near the top of the Tower of Terror is Lady Domina. She has her Killjoys there. She only has 4 members of her gangs that are starting off initial deployment on this one. Up in the back, that is Mad Donna. That is her champion who's armed with mesh armor as well as a heavy stubber. She's got a las gun as well as a last pistol and a drop rig as well. She's the gang champion. Right in front of her, that is Raven. Raven has flak armor as well as a combo weapon, which is a bolter mixed with a needler gun as well as a chain sword. And that character, if you guys remember in the last round, that was the one who actually got saved by the Stinger Mold Sprawl, so she's pretty lucky to be here at the same time. Meanwhile, on the far right hand side, we have Lucky Lucy, who's a juvie, sorry, not Lucky Lucy, that is Harlow, I believe. No, sorry, Marlowe, that's her name. Marlowe is a juvie who's armed with flak armor, a las gun, as well as a stub gun with dum-dum rounds, as well as a stiletto knife. And then right in front of her, that is Nocturna. That is a ganger who's armed with flak armor, las gun, stiletto, sword, as well as a Kim Sith booster upgrade as well. And that pretty much makes up Lady Domina's deployment on this one. And of course, off to the side on the right hand side of the battlefield, that's Lady Domina's rest of her gang, who's just kind of waiting in the wings to be deployed. That's One Shot Blonde, followed by Furia, which is the gang leader. After that becomes Harlow, who's armed with a last gun as well as a stub gun, as well as shock whip and dum dum rounds. Next to them, that's Lucky Lucy, as well as Sister Christian, 2 more juvies, and in the back that is Trixie as well. And that makes it the deployment on this one. So with deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and both Lady Domina and Sister Serial roll off for initiative to see who goes first. Alright, so the very first person to go first are the Enforcers. My friend Sister Serial managed to win the initiative on this one. So the first thing that she does, she activates Judge Drake. Now Judge Drake is armed with a heavy stubber, and he's reaching all the way across the diagonal portion of the battlefield to the top of the Tower of Terror, taking aim at the closest enemy model towards him, cutting loose with his heavy stubber. Unfortunately for Lady Domina though, Sister Serial rolled a rapid fire dice of 3 hits, so because all 3 of her shots actually land and actually hit. The first one, she actually causes a serious injury onto Nocturna, so Nocturna is now laying on the ground bleeding out, and she also causes a flesh wound as well as a pin, I believe, onto the other juvie, that's Harlow. No, sorry, not Harlow, Marlowe. That's her name. I keep on getting my names mixed up. I do apologize for that one. So she's also laying on the ground as well. She's also been pinned, but she also suffered a flesh wound as well, so she's kind of bleeding on the ground as well. So right off the bat, Lady Domina, half her gang is kind of down right now, even though they're only part of them are being deployed. And she got really lucky on that one, considering the fact that she's immune to bottle tests at this point. So not to be outdone, Lady Domina then activates Mad Donna, who's a champion, who then also activates her fighter Raven, who's another ganger. She moves up her ganger her normal 5 inches and has her cut loose with her bolt gun directly onto the gantry walkway, where both the Interceptor as well as Judge Gosling are located at. Unfortunately for her though, she wasn't able to land any of her shots because Judge Gosling as well as the Interceptor are kind of in partial cover behind a Hesco barrier that's on the top of the walkway, so her shots land wide. However, for Lady Domina, she does activate Mad Donna, and Mad Donna opens up with a rapid fire ability on her heavy stubber, and she actually gets off 3 shots on that one. All 3 of those shots go directly into the Interceptor. The first 2 missed, but the last one was able to cut home, and because of that managed to put the Interceptor out of action, suffering a grievous injury. So because of that, the Interceptor does go out of action, which will account for the bottle test for the Precinct 13, and also he will also miss his next scenario because he's grievously injured. And that pretty much makes it Lady Domina's turn on this one. So, not wanting to be outdone by Lady Domina, Sister Serial then activates her gang leader, Judge Fear, who also activates Judge Anderson, as well as Judge Vasquez, and all 3 members of the gang actually do double movements along the bottom level of the gantry walkway, so that way they're being covered from the top so they can't be shot at. Now, there is a gap between the 2 walkways there, that is noticeable. We didn't count that gap, it's just that we forgot to put a little board piece of terrain that's supposed to be on there, so this was supposed to be a continuous gantry walkway. So if you're wondering, man, did those 2 enforcers jump that gap? No, they didn't. They're supposed to pretend that there's actually like a walkway there that they crossed over, and they're moving as quick as they can so that way they can start engaging Lady Domina's forces on the top of the Tower of Terror. At the same time, Lady Domina also Sister Serial activates Judge Gosling, who does a double movement across the top of the walkway, taking cover behind the other Hisco barrier that's in the middle of the walkway as well. So with the movement phase all finished off with, the activation phase all done, we go directly to the end phase. And during the end phase, of course, Lady Domina's Nocturna, she's basically suffers a flesh wound, so because of that she flips over because she's pinned, but she's still carrying a flesh wound at the same time. Marlowe also gets back on her feet again and gets ready to be activated again for the next turn because she also gets a flesh wound. And finally, since it's the end of the turn, Lady Domina also gets reinforcement. She rolls a D3 and only rolls a 1, so she decides to send Furia, her leader, in directly right behind the Precinct 13 on the middle of Sister Serial's deployment area. And that pretty much makes it the turn number 1 for this scenario. Here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see in the top, Sister Serial is maneuvering her forces along the gantry walkway there on the left-hand side, heading towards the Tower of Terror in order to engage the Killjoys who are located on the top of it. As you can see in the far right-hand side, on the top of the MCI Chemical Works, you can see Judge Drake located there on the top, laying down some covering fire with his heavy stubber. And if you look here on the bottom left-hand corner, you can also see a little bit of Furia getting ready to charge it behind to the back ranks of the Precinct 13 and start engaging it that way as well. So with the end of turn number 1 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and my friends Lady Domina and Sister Serial roll off for initiative to see who goes first. Alright, so top of turn number 2 goes with the Eschers, so because that Lady Domina will have initiative on this one, and the first thing she does, she actually moves up her gang leader all the way to the bottom of that gantry walkway, so that way she can take cover and not get shot at. Now, she only moved up her normal movement allowance of 5 inches because she was planning on opening up with her bolt gun. The only problem was that she realized later on she had no line of sight on any of the judges, so because of all she really did decide to do is lay on the ground there and just kind of stay put. She didn't really want to send her boss up to the top, so that way she wouldn't get shot at by the judges on the top, so she goes directly into hiding, so that way she can't be engaged to kind of keep herself safe at the same time. Meanwhile, Sister Serial then activates Judge Drake once again, and he's across the battlefield. The closest target he can actually target against is Raven, who's all the way across the other side of the battlefield. And once again, Sister Serial actually gets off a number of shots on this guy. She actually rolled the rapid fire dice and actually rolled up 3 hits on that part, so that part was pretty cool. Unfortunately for Lady Dama, though, those shots did manage to hit as well as wound Raven, so because of that she goes down and out of action as well. Only this time she rolled Snake Eyes for the injury, so because of that she got the Lessons Learned ability. Now, Raven does go into recovery, so she will miss out on her next battle report. However, she earned 2 points of experience from that, so that's kind of nice as well. I guess she learned from the fact that the last time she got shot at and got killed, which is by my gang, the jury, so that part was kind of cool as well. So she's laying on the ground now, bleeding out, and goes out of action. Lady Domina then activates Nocturna, who does a normal movement along to the top of the Tower of Terror, looking down the gantry walkway towards the Enforcers. She does try to pop a shot with her last rifle against Judge Gosling, but unfortunately for her, though, she misses because Judge Gosling is behind partial cover with a -1 hit against. So that takes place at the top of the tower. Meanwhile, Judge Gosling, he does a double movement across the walkway and ends up on the 3rd floor of the Tower of Terror as well, making his way to the rooftop in order to engage the Killjoys, who are located at the top of the structure. Lady Dama then activates Mad Donna, which is the game champion arm of the Heavy Stubber, and the closest target to her, because she can't see anybody else because they're in the dead space beneath her, she can't target any of the judges except for one, which is Judge Drake, who's all the way across the other side of the battlefield. So when she rolls a rapid fire die, Lady Dama only rolls a 1 additional hit on that one, so she hits him twice, and unfortunately for her, though, she was able to wound Judge Drake. Both of his armor saves kind of stopped it. However, even though he did armor save his wounds, though, he does fall. When he gets hit, he's so close to the edge, he has to take an initiative test, and unfortunately for Sister Serial, Judge Drake failed both of his initiative tests, so because of that, he goes plummeting down to the earth and takes a flesh wound as well, as also gets pinned as well, so things are not looking very good right now for Judge Drake. He just got knocked off his perch, which means he loses all line of sight for any targets that he had initially. Sister Serial then activates Judge Fear, who then also activates Judge Anderson. So because of that, who also activates Judge Vasquez. We're going to show a picture of him in here in a second. But what ended up happening is that Judge Anderson, as well as Judge Fear, they spend double movements along the 2nd floor of the gantry walkway, heading towards the 2nd floor of the Tower of Terror, so that way they can make their way upwards in order to engage the Killjoys. Meanwhile, Judge Vasquez also drops down to the ground from the 2nd floor of the gantry walkway, so that way he can start engaging Furia, who's on the very back end of the deployment area for Precinct 13. And that pretty much makes up all the action phases for Sister Serial. And lastly, Lady Domina then activates Marlowe, who then spends a double movement walking down to the 2nd level, the 3rd level of the Tower of Terror as well. So that puts her in a good position, so that way she can charge directly against Judge Gosling and engage him in close combat. And that pretty much makes it the action phase for Lady Domina. So with the action phase over with, we go directly to the end phase. And in the end phase, Lady Dama then gets 3 more reinforcements. She rolls a d3 and ends up getting a 6. So because of that, Trixie, as well as, I believe that's, Harlow, as well as One Shot Blonde, all 3 of those gangers show up on the left-hand side of the battlefield, getting ready to engage Precinct 13. And that pretty much makes it the end phase on this one. Here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield at the end of round number 2. You really can't see Precinct 13 because they're really pushing their advance forward along the walkway there towards the Tower of Terror. You can kind of make out Judge Gosling down the 3rd floor as well. At the same time, Judge Vasquez, he's on the ground level beneath the gantry walkway, getting ready to attack Furia, who's on the left-hand side there in the bottom left-hand corner. At the same time, Judge Drake, he's still bleeding out because he just kind of fell and was pinned when he lands on the other side of the walkway there. He actually took hits all the way down, actually fell 3 floors before he actually hit the ground. Each time he actually didn't suffer a wound until he hit the very bottom, which gave him his 1 wound to his characteristics. At the same time, you can see that on the far left-hand side, that's Trixie, as well as Lucky Lucy, as well as One Shot Blonde, getting ready to move their forces across the battlefield in order to engage Precinct 13 on the left-hand side. So with the bottom of turn number 2 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 3, and my friends roll off for initiative to see who goes first. So the top of turn number 3 goes to Sister Serial, and the first thing she does, she activates Judge Drake. Realizing now that he's going to be outnumbered here pretty quickly, being attacked by the 3 newly arriving Killjoys on the left-hand flank, as well as Furia, our friend Sister Serial spends a double movement for him to go directly to the middle of that Rise of Rust ruins right there in the center of the battlefield, so that way he gets some cover away from the Killjoys are assaulting from the left-hand side. Now, because he does double movement, he won't be able to do anything else, but at the same time, though, he's trying to protect himself from being shot at. Lady Dama then activates Marlowe, the Juvie, who's armed with a last gun, to actually charge him directly into Judge Gosling, engaging that guy in a close combat as well. Now, Marlowe is actually pretty kitted out for close combat. She's got a stub gun with dum-dum bullets, as well as a stiletto knife. So even though Judge Anderson does have mesh armor, if she has the Toxin special ability with her stiletto knife, she could actually take him out of action. Judge Gosling, on the other hand, he's armed with a shotgun as well as a maul. So because of that, she has more attacks because she's dual-wielding weapons with a stub gun as well as a knife. Plus, she charged as well. So because of that, Marlowe actually gets, I think, a total of 4 attacks, which she's getting. Let's see here. 1 attack base, additional attack for whip. No, sorry, she gets 3 attacks, as opposed to Judge Gosling's only 1 attack. Needless to say, the 2 additional attack dice really paid off, managed to put a grievous injury onto Gosling as well. So because of that, Judge Gosling does go out of action, and he will miss out his next battle report as he goes directly into recovery. Meanwhile, Sister Serial then activates Judge Fear, who then also activates Judge Anderson. Judge Anderson does a double movement across to the 2nd floor of the Tower of Terror as well, so that way they can start maneuvering and make her way up the top of the tower there. At the same time, Judge Fear actually turns around and faces down the barrel directly towards those 3 Killjoys that just deployed on the table during the end phase, and actually takes aim with his bolt gun and opens fire. Sister Serial actually fires 3 times using the rapid fire ability, and because these 3 gangers are all within 1 inch of each other, she just kind of works her way down the line. The first one she does, she takes out Trixie, getting her an out cold result. So because that Trixie does go out of action, managed to put 2 flesh wounds onto the newly arrived Harlow, which is the Juvie's arm with the last gun as well, puts 2 flesh wounds on her, which is really bad for Sister Serial because the only thing she could hope for at this point is a serious injury roll, because if she rolls a flesh wound for Harlow, she automatically goes out of action because she used up her last flesh wound. At the same time, she rolls out of action, she gets a serious injury, so things are not looking really good. So Marlowe's down, same thing with Trixie. However, when it came to One Shot Blonde, he did manage to hit her with 1 shot from his bolt gun, was unable to wound though. I think he rolled a 1 for that roll, so because that Sister Serial was unable to take out One Shot Blonde. But at the same time though, it just kind of made that left-hand assault flank combat effective at that point. So things are not looking very good right now for the Killjoys. And since that pretty much makes up most of the action phase for the Precinct 13, the rest of the phase really pretty much goes down to the Killjoys, so we're going to be spending a little bit of time with them. The first thing that's happening is that Nocturna actually drops the next level down below to the 3rd floor of the Tower of Terror to back up Marlowe, so that way they can start making their assault towards Precinct 13. At the same time, Lady Domina also moves up a double movement, actually. Sorry, not a double movement, a regular movement with Mad Donna, so that way she moves towards that little balcony there, and then she also goes into hiding as well, so that way she doesn't get targeted, so that way she's a little bit more protected from the long-range fire from the Precinct 13. At the same time, she also moves up both Lucky Lucy as well as, what's her name, One Shot Blonde. Now, Lucky Lucy did suffer a flesh wound. No, sorry, Lucky Lucy, Marlowe, I think. Harlow is her name. There we go. Harlow. They move up directly to behind that little car area, so that way they can start pressing their advantage on the left-hand side. And then finally, Lady Dama then activates Furia, who does a basic move to the right-hand side, so that way she can take aim with her bolt gun, and she opens up rapid fire directly into Judge Vasquez, who's trying to hide behind the Rise of Rust ruins right in the middle of the table. Unfortunately for Sister Serial, though, both the shots, actually 1 shot from Furia did manage to put down Judge Vasquez, so because he is laying on the ground bleeding out, he actually lost both of his wounds, was unable to stop any of the armor saves from being shot with that bolt gun. So now he's laying on the ground bleeding out, and Sister Serial will need to roll up for him during the end phase to see exactly what ends up happening for him. And finally, Judge Drake, he does get back on his feet again because he was pinned previously, so because of that, he does lose one of his actions to get back on his feet again, and he does his basic move at 4 because that's all he can really do at this point. And he's also carrying 1 wound from his fall from earlier. And that pretty much makes it the action phase for turn number 3. So with the action phase over with, we go directly to the end phase. And as you can imagine, Sister Serial does have to take a bottle test, which unfortunately she does fail at this part. So because of that, she will need to take cool checks at the beginning of her next phase to see exactly if the gang members of the Enforcers actually stay around or if they flee off the battlefield instead. In the recovery portion of the end phase, Judge Vasquez does roll a flesh wound, so because of that, he's flipped over to represent that he's pinned, but he is a little bit easier to wound, but at the same time though, this guy is carrying a flamer and he's also still pretty deadly. He can do some stuff to kind of mess up with the Killjoys. And finally, Lady Dama then also deploys her last 2 juvies, that's Lucky Lucy as well as Sister Christian. They show up on the far right hand side of the battlefield at the base of the MCI Chemical Office building, so that way they can start putting the pressure onto Judge Drake. And that pretty much makes up turn number 3 for this one. Here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the turn number 3, so that way you can see exactly what's going on. You can see Judge Vasquez bleeding out right there in the middle of the table. The Killjoys are attacking from the left as well as from the right as well, and from behind. And right now, Precinct 13 is quickly being swarmed. And to make matters worse, Sister Cyril does have to take a break check, a cool check for each of her fighters to see if they actually stick around. So with turn number 3 over with, they go directly to the top of turn number 4. And the Enforcers actually get numbered 4 as well, so because that Sister Cyril does take the initiative, however, she has to take cool checks for each of her fighters. So the very first person she starts off with is Judge Drake, and as you can see in this photo, Judge Drake does fail his cool check, so because that, he flees off the battlefield. And at the same time, Judge Anderson also fails her cool check too, so because that, she starts running away because she doesn't want to have to see how this scenario ends out. So, needless to say, my friend Sister Cyril decides to bottle out on this one. She decides to voluntarily quit the game, which brings us a victory for the Eschers of the Killjoys. So because that Lady Dama does win this scenario, and as you can see here, here's what the entirety of the battlefield looks like at the end of the scenario. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly to the after action report, to the post game, and talk about exactly what happened to both of these gangs. Alright, so now it's time for the post game for Precinct 13. Starting off with injuries, both Judge Gosling as well as the Interceptor both suffered grievous injuries, so they go directly into recovery and they'll miss out their next battle report. For advancements, unfortunately for Sister Cyril, she didn't actually earn enough experience points to advance anybody, so they're still pretty much static from where they were last time. From her territory, she does earn 1 point of reputation from her settlement as well as 40 creds. For reputation, she does earn 1 point of reputation from her settlement as well as 1 point of reputation for fighting against the Killjoys for the very first time. However, since she bottled out though, she lost that 1 additional point of reputation. That brings her total reputation total to 13 points. At the merchant, she earned 15 credits from the scenario, 40 credits from the settlement, as well as 130 credits from her reputation as well. With her credits, she hired a new hunter named Judge Cold, who's equipped with mesh armor, bolt gun, maul, as well as frag grenades, and also purchased blasting charges for Judge Mason as well. In the end, her new record now is at 2 wins as well as 2 losses, and her new gang rating is at 1,640 points. Now for the Killjoys, they did suffer 2 injuries. Trixie got them out cold results because she makes a full recovery no problem, and Raven also goes into recovery with lessons learned as she earns 2 additional experience points as well. For advancements, 4 members of her gang did advance. Furia, her leader, earned +1 to her toughness, so because of that she is super hard to kill now. Mad Dada earned +1 to her ballistic skill. Raven got +1 to her movement speed, so because of that she's just as fast as a juvie. And One Shot Blunt also got +1 to her toughness as well. So now there's toughness 4 Eschers running around in the campaign now, which is pretty tough because these ladies are really tough in close combat, and now they're going to be a little bit harder to kill. From their territory, from her settlement, Lady Domina earned 1 point of reputation as well as 40 creds. From her Stinger Mold Sprawl, she earned another additional point of reputation, and she also used the enhanced boon from the Stinger Mold Sprawl to remove Nocturna's head injury. So because that, Nocturna earned +1 to her intelligence and her willpower because her head injury is no longer in existence. She does have a waist, which doesn't really get anything from it. However, for her brand new territory for this one, she did capture a synth still, which means she has half off on all chems and drugs that she'll use, and narcotics that she'll use for her gang, so that's good for her. And she also nets herself an additional point of reputation from the enhanced boon from that one. From reputation, she earned 1 point of reputation from her settlement, the Stinger Mold Sprawl, as well as the Synth Still. She also earned another one for fighting against Precinct 13 for the very first time. She also earns 2 points of reputation from winning the scenario, bringing her a grand total of 15 reputation points in all. At the merchant, she earned 40 credits from her scenario, from winning the scenario, as well as 40 from her settlement, and she purchased a suspensor for Mad Donna, so that value, Mad Donna's heavy stone is no longer unwieldy. She can shoot at it now with a basic action, and she also purchased 2 drop rigs, one for Marlowe as well as one for Harlow. Her new record now is at 3 wins and 1 loss, and her new gang rating now is at 1,420 points. So that's good to do for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Instagram, blogger.com, as well as Facebook for all the latest greatest news about our hobby. That's good to do for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.